When I saw what Dan Orlovsky said about Lamar Jackson, I have to admit I was surprised. And it wasn't because he questioned Lamar's talent as the Ravens quarterback. What caught my attention was the warning he gave about a problem that a lot of people seem to be overlooking, but it could have a direct impact on how Baltimore starts the season. The most interesting part is that this concern has nothing to do with injuries or a lack of talent on the roster. Actually, it's the opposite. The Ravens are still surrounded by high expectations, but there's one important detail that could completely change how this team begins a year. And once you understand what led Orlovsky to make this warning, it becomes much easier to see why this topic has people talking. Dan Orlovsky gave a warning that caught the attention of many people over the last few days. The former NFL quarterback believes Ravens fans might need to be patient before making conclusions about Lamar Jackson and this offense. And honestly, the more I look at Baltimore's situation, the more I understand why this concern exists. During his appearance on ESPN's Get Up, Orlovsky got straight to the point when he said, "It's going to take time." The statement sounds simple, but it makes a lot of sense when you look at everything that has changed inside the organization. The Ravens are entering a new era with Jesse Minter as the head coach and Declan Doyle taking over the offense, ending a cycle that lasted for years in Baltimore. In my view, a lot of people are underestimating the impact of these changes. We're not just talking about new coaches taking over different positions. We're talking about new ideas, new responsibilities, and a completely different way of running the offense. For a quarterback, that affects almost every part of the game, from reading defenses to communicating with teammates on the field. Lamar Jackson is still one of the most talented players in the NFL, but talent doesn't remove the need for adjustment. That's why I believe the first few games might not show the true potential of this team. The challenge for Baltimore won't only be winning games, but speeding up a process that usually takes time, especially when so many important pieces are trying to find chemistry at the same time. During his appearance on ESPN's Get Up, Dan Orlovsky made a comparison that caught a lot of attention. He brought up what happened with Caleb Williams and the Bears' offense last season to explain why he believes the Ravens could face similar struggles. From his perspective, the issue isn't the quality of the players, but the time needed for a new offensive system to start working the way it should. Orlovsky pointed out that Chicago's offense was one of the worst in the NFL during the first few months of the season, but improved significantly as the players gained more experience in the system. That's why he said, it's going to take time. When a former quarterback makes a comment like this, he's usually looking at details that many fans don't notice, especially when it comes to the process of adapting an entire offense. I think this comparison is interesting because it goes beyond the simple idea of just looking at talent. It's easy to look at Lamar Jackson and expect everything to work immediately, but football depends on timing and chemistry. The quarterback needs to trust the offensive line, understand where receivers are going to be, and make decisions within seconds. When multiple things change at the same time, that connection takes longer to reach its best level. Maybe the biggest risk for Baltimore is impatience. In a league where every game creates headlines and overreactions, a few disappointing results can create doubts that don't represent the real identity of the team. And when you look at how many things are changing around Lamar Jackson, it becomes easy to understand why many people believe the most important answers about this offense will only appear after the season gets underway. Besides the changes on the coaching staff, there is another factor mentioned in Dan Orlovsky's warning that deserves attention. The former quarterback pointed out that Lamar Jackson is not entering the season with the exact same group of players around him. Some important pieces have changed, new names have arrived, and several players still need to build chemistry within the new system. Among the points Orlovsky mentioned are the young receivers on the outside and a reworked interior offensive line. These changes might seem small to people who only look at the final results, but they directly impact how an offense operates. A route being run a few seconds too early or too late can completely change the outcome of a play. In my opinion, this is one of the most overlooked parts of the entire story. When a quarterback loses timing with his receivers, the entire offense can struggle immediately. A lot of times, the blame falls only on the player throwing the ball, but the reality is much more complicated. A successful offense depends on multiple pieces working together, and building that connection takes time. Because of that, it wouldn't be surprising to see some inconsistency during the first few weeks. Some mistakes early in the season might not be a sign of a lack of talent, but rather a group still trying to find its identity. And while that chemistry is being built, the Ravens will need to find ways to compete and win games even before this offense reaches its best version. Despite the concerns and questions raised by Dan Orlovsky, there's an important reason for Ravens fans to remain optimistic. This roster still has players capable of changing a game at any moment, and when Lamar Jackson is healthy, there are very few teams in the NFL with an offensive threat as difficult to defend. The report highlights that Derrick Henry remains a central part of Baltimore's rushing attack. That gives any offensive coordinator a major advantage. Defenses that constantly have to worry about a player like Henry end up creating opportunities in other areas of the field. At the same time, Lamar remains a dual-threat quarterback, capable of hurting teams both with his legs and through the passing game. I believe this is the main reason why Orlovsky's warning should not be viewed as prediction of failure. At no point did he say the Ravens will have a bad offense. What he is questioning is when this potential will show up. There is a huge difference between saying a team might struggle early and saying that team doesn't have what it takes to compete with the best. The talent is still spread throughout Baltimore's offense. When Derrick Henry forces defenses to focus on the run, and Lamar Jackson takes advantage of the opportunities created by that pressure, the Ravens become an extremely difficult team to defend. The challenge will be turning that potential into consistent production, while the new system continues to be learned by the players.
If you're enjoying this breakdown, smash that like button to help the purple flock grow.
Dan Orlovsky's final point might be the most important part of this entire discussion. He believed the first few games will not be the best way to measure who the Ravens truly are. The former quarterback thinks a fair evaluation will only happen once the new offensive system is fully understood by the players and the coaching staff. This idea makes sense because major changes rarely produce immediate results. Every week, coaches adjust strategies, quarterbacks become more comfortable in the system, and players start reacting more naturally to different game situations. Many teams look completely different when you compare their performance in September to the way they played during the final months of the season. In my view, this is the difference between a rushed reaction and a more balanced evaluation. It's easy to create narratives after 2 or 3 games. The difficult part is understanding that some teams need time to grow. When a franchise changes important pieces of its coaching staff and adjusts part of its offensive structure, results usually come in stages, not all at once. That's why the biggest question might not be how the Ravens look during the first few weeks. The question that could define this team is how this offense performs when the biggest games of the season arrive. If Lamar Jackson can speed up this adjustment process and Declan Doyle's system delivers what it promises, Baltimore could finish the year looking like a much more complete and dangerous team than the one we see at the beginning. The truth is, Dan Orlovsky's warning has nothing to do with a lack of talent. Nobody is questioning Lamar Jackson's ability or saying the Ravens are no longer a dangerous team. His point is something else. Can a team that went through so many changes reach its best level right from the first few weeks of the season? What makes this discussion so interesting is that there are arguments on both sides. Baltimore still has players who can change a game at any moment, but the team will also have to deal with a new offensive system, new processes, and the challenge of building chemistry at several important positions. And in the NFL, the difference between a dominant offense and an inconsistent one often comes down to small details that fans don't always notice during a game. Now I want to know what you think about all of this. Is Dan Orlovsky right that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens need patience? Or do you believe this team already has what it takes to start the season playing at a high level? Leave your thoughts in the comments.
And if you're a true Ravens fan and love keeping up with everything happening around the team, don't leave this video without sharing it with a friend who's just as passionate. They're definitely going to enjoy this. See those videos on your screen right now? I picked the first one especially for you, and the other is recommended by YouTube. Go check them out and I'll see you in the next video.